Hello, and welcome to the Science of Conversations. I'm Michelle Stills, the conversation coach, and in this episode, I'm going to talk about accents. So, we know from research that someone who has an accent is often perceived by the listener as being less credible and less intelligent. And this creates biases. And sometimes you'll hear folks say, people need to work on their English. Why don't people speak English? Well, they are speaking English. There may be a pronunciation issue, but that isn't something we can't get around. And so, what I'm proposing here is rather than they need to, we need to. Native speakers need to make a shift because we can. And and I want to point out one thing is that if the bias does exist that tells you or you ever hear, oh, they have an accent, they're not intelligent, they're not credible, whatever you hear. I don't care if it's a Southern, Appalachian, or Jersey accent, that's not true. It is especially untrue of folks who are bi or multilingual because research has shown that people who are bilingual and multilingual actually exhibit enhanced attention and task switching abilities compared to monolingual individuals. Um, and this improvement in cognitive skills is absolutely attributed to increased brain activity in regions associated with attention, inhibition, problem solving, and memory. So, additionally, being bilingual can also lead to better understanding of how language works, less mental decline in old age, improved executive function and control, and enhanced neuroplasticity and working memory. We love those things. Our working memory, there's a saying, seven plus or minus two, and that means typically we can hold 5 to 9 things in our working memory. Imagine that folks who are bilingual might be able to exceed that. That's really impressive. So if we start to look at this and reframe it, we can do better. Okay. So another thing we want to do is work on developing empathy. Let's consider the effort an individual has put in to moving to the United States, potentially becoming a citizen and learning English. So that is a really challenging and brave process. And if we acknowledge that effort rather than dwelling on our lack of understanding, that can begin a really big switch. And it can help us move on to the next step, which is developing empathy. Learn to empathize with the challenges of non-native speakers because that can help foster a more compassionate listening stance. So imagine yourself trying to communicate in a second language and consider the courage it takes for others to do that, especially in professional or formal settings. And if we look at it from that perspective, we can not only understand non-native speakers better, but we will just increase our own patience and understanding and be less anxious when we're having conversations with people we fear that we won't be able to understand. And a lot of times that's what it is. We're afraid we won't understand. And in that process, we create a situation, typically an amygdala hijack, which prevents us from being able to understand. Another thing we can do is shift into the mode of active listening. You need to fully concentrate on what's being said and body language and everything rather than passively listening. And that means paying attention, like I said, to everything, to body language. Ask clarifying questions and reflect what you do understand. Avoid things like, your accent is heavy. I didn't get that. Okay. Because that we know causes anxiety in the other person, and we want to avoid that. Another thing is you can reduce the anxiety of the individual you're talking to, who has an accent by being more encouraging, um, and just listening and listening for that context and being culturally sensitive. Communication accommodation principle tells us that we don't have to hear every word. We absolutely can pick up what we need to know from context. We're able to relax and just be present and actively listen to an individual. Also, especially if these are conversations you have on a regular basis, educate yourself. Learn about people's cultures. Learn about particular language barriers they may experience, and try to help out and be more understanding and compassionate and empathetic. And I think that's where the shift begins with us. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful. If so, please like, subscribe, and feel free to comment. Um, Please feel free to ask questions. Let me know your challenges, things you'd like me to cover in the comments. And again, thank you for being here and hanging out with me.